Welcome to the teachers who are here live, and welcome to everyone else to this part 2 of Digital Reflections. Today we're going to dig in a little bit deeper, and we're going to tackle a few things that might be a little bit more challenging, but with that increase of challenge comes increased rigor, comes increased depth. So I'm going to share you a couple of my favorite things. We're still focusing on ideas, tools to help support kids and help get kids reflecting on their learning and digging deeper into content. So one quick note before we really jump in that I forget to mention, I have really the coolest job right now, as I was a high school English teacher and now I'm doing this. So I'm into year 2 of this new job, but part of my job is to support any teacher in North Dakota. So if you would like additional support with any of these tools, I am available to do individual coaching. We can set up a virtual session, or I can come right to your classroom and help you think about how you might use one of these tools, or better yet, just be a second person in your classroom if you're introducing something new with your students. So last year I helped introduce some coding in a 2nd grade classroom. I was in a couple high school classrooms doing some different writing tools. I even got into a 3rd grade classroom to help demonstrate a tool called Storybird. So if that is something that would be of interest to you, if you don't have technology support in your school district, I'm available. That's literally my job, and it's the part of my job that I think is the most exciting and fun. So feel free to email me. My email address is linked right here on this first slide. So with that, we're gonna get started. We're gonna start today first with Screencast-O-Matic, because I think this is the simplest and honestly the most diverse tool that I'm going to share today. This is a basic screencasting. So anytime you see people on YouTube who are kind of doing what I'm doing, where they're talking and they're showing their screen and they're recording it, they're probably using a screencasting tool like Screencast-O-Matic. There are a lot of them out there. If you are a Google person, there is Screencastify, is the free Google tool that links automatically with your Google account and your Drive. I am a Google girl, and even with that, I still prefer Screencast-O-Matic, and I'm going to show you a little bit why. When you go to Screencast-O-Matic, this will be your main page. Pretty straightforward. If you want to start recording something, you click this fancy button that says Start Recording. It may ask you to download the first time that you need to do the screen recorder. It might ask you to do that launch. And then it will give you this little recorder launch. It does take a little bit to open, but you can see that I have this nice little frame and I can move it around wherever I want, and I can adjust the size. And then that, wherever I have this box, that is what is going to record. So when I'm ready to record, let's say I want to do this assignment for my students. I want to explain to them this book love project. So I'm going to hit this record button. It gives me a nice countdown. And now I can explain this assignment to kids. So we're going to do book love this semester. And I want you to think about all of these things having to do with books. And we're going to look at some different project expectations. You are going to find a book that you're interested in reading, bring it to class every day, read it. You're going to do 2 book talks this semester. And when I'm ready, I can pause my video. Let's say I wanted to switch to some other information, not to my Screencast-O-Matic, but I want to switch to this poster. So now I can change my screen and I can show them, all right, we're gonna do this, poster activity. And now I just hit record again. It will give me a new countdown. All right, so when you're ready to do your book share, you are going to create a little book sharing poster. And there are some basic components. You need to have some sort of visual representation that cannot be the book cover. You need to have the book's title and author, and then who it's recommended by. And then you need to have a simple statement that says, if you liked blank, blank, and blank, you will like this book. So it could be here, I've said, if you liked Hunger Games, Maze Runner, Divergent, 1984, you will like this book. But it could also be if you like action, adventure, and insane car chases, which is not indicative of this particular book, but any three things that are comparative to this book. Then make one statement about why you particularly liked this book, that it's full of a lot of action, lots of death and destruction. You're gonna print off this poster and bring it to class. So now I can pause. If I didn't like that, if I was like, oh, I didn't want that to be that long of an explanation, I wanna redo that. There's this great option where I can click this button that says seek back, and that will take me back. If I click the red button, it will truncate to where I last recorded and let me record again. You're gonna make a poster. You need an image, not the book cover, but an image that helps shows what the book is about, the book title, the book author, a comparative statement where you say three things that the book is like, as well as one sentence where you explain why you either liked or didn't like the book. All right, so I thought that was better. That was 30 seconds shorter. If I'm ready to go, I click done. And now I have this lovely little pop-up. It asks me what I want to do. One of the reasons why I like Screencast-O-Matic more than Screencastify is these options. On Screencastify, which will talk to your Google account easily, your main option is to publish straight to YouTube. So I like this save video option because then I can save the video just directly to my desktop and I don't have to worry about, I have to choose where I want to save this. So I'm gonna put it in my desktop, but you can put it wherever you want. And then I'm going to publish that file. So the advantages here, now I'm going to have an MP4 file instead of a YouTube link. Now I can put that MP4 file wherever, I can add it places, I can further edit it if I want to for any reason. And then when I'm done, I simply click done. I can then go to my desktop and my video link will be right here. And now I can explain this assignment to kids. So we're going to, and then you have this video assignment. I'll be honest, I did not use this to explain assignments, but I do really like the idea of doing this because I taught multiple different sections of the same class every day. And despite how much I would try, there were numerous times where I would forget to tell one section something or tell sections things that were slightly different. So I like the idea that I could just record myself giving instructions for any assignment. Now parents know the requirements, kids who were absent know the requirements, and I can guarantee that every single section of students is receiving the exact same information. So that's a little bit about Screencast-O-Matic. There are several different variations, so feel free to find something that works for you. Like I said, for a couple different reasons, I like Screencast-O-Matic just a little bit better than the Screencastify. And it works great if you're creating your own videos so that you could do flipped learning or blended learning. Once I have this video, I can certainly now take it to a tool like Edpuzzle, and I could put in questions and embed questions right into the video that I have created. And I can also share this video, like I said, with anyone who is absent, with any parents, with any colleagues. And be able to tackle a few different projects. I have one here for you that I made. It's pretty boring, but this one is for a lesson. And this was because as a high school English teacher, I was kind of bored with having to teach the same tools for plagiarism every single year because it's the same. And I know that students in general start receiving that information in like 6th, 4th, 5th grade on in-text citations and things like that. Kim, do you teach that to your students in library skills at all?
Yes, we do touch on it.
Okay, and what grade do you start even talking about citing your sources?
Probably about 3rd grade.
Right, so by the time I get these seniors in high school, they've heard it, and I was tired of reteaching the exact same thing year after year. But I also didn't want to assume that as seniors, or particularly the first paper coming back in the school year, that they remembered everything that we had talked about or that they had learned before. So I made them this little guide. Okay? They have this resource that they can go back to, and I don't need to reteach something that's kind of boring. So that's one of the main ideas for using this. If you are interested in flipped classroom, I'm going to do a whole series in November focusing on talking to some teachers who have flipped their classroom and how they've done it and how it works. But if you are interested or you've kind of already started some things, I highly recommend Edpuzzle as a tool to add into your flipped classroom. And we'll get to that come November. The other way that I like to use Screencast-O-Matic is you could have students record their own content. So instead of me recording a video about doing in-text citations, I could have a group of students explain how to do in-text citations, right? So now I could make a formative assessment. You need to explain to me your understanding of in-text citations, have a list of things they need to do, and then they have to do a Screencast-O-Matic or Screencastify recording of themselves explaining that concept. So now I have them reflecting on their thinking, and I could then use those videos to reteach other things. I've also used Screencast-O-Matic in order to give people feedback on their research papers. So rather than writing, I got all of my research papers from juniors and seniors electronically. So I had a lot of electronic stuff. I didn't like having a ton of paper. It just kind of felt good. But I sometimes got a little annoyed having to type all of my feedback then and having to highlight everything. So I found that doing a quick 2-minute Screencast-O-Matic video for my students' papers actually gave me a much more conversational way for me to talk to a student about their paper and have a recorded archival document of that conversation. So yes, I would do that throughout the writing process as they're writing in the classroom. But once they have that final product, Screencast-O-Matic was a way for me to record feedback for them to say, here are the things that you did really well. And I thought you improved at doing X. And then here are some of the main areas where I would like you to grow. And so now I had a short 2-minute video. I found that in general, particularly if I gave in-class time for the students to listen to the videos, students paid more attention to the video. It was easier for them to go through than looking through a whole bunch of comments in a paper. I don't know if you've ever had this, but I always found it kind of heartbreaking when students, I would, pour my heart out giving them feedback on their paper, and they would just look at their final grade and then throw it in the garbage. I don't know if that happens to other people aside from me, but I was trying to come up with a better way to help give feedback for things. So I went to not putting the grades on the paper, but just talking about the grade in the video and then obviously posting it online. So the students had to listen to the video to hear how they did, and I could pull up the rubric and kind of show them the rubric right in the video. Now, if parents have questions about anything, I can just email them that little video. I've already explained why their child received the grade that they received. Conversely, in that same scenario, I can have students give each other feedback. And more importantly, I can have a student respond to me via video looking at their paper. All right, so here is what Bakigard said about my paper. And here is what I'm going to do. Here are my goals for the next time I have a writing assignment. And same thing, they now have a short little document. I did not do this for every single assignment. I did this for a couple of the key capstone assignments that I wanted a little bit more of an archive for, and a few of those big grades. This was not something that we did every single day. But because it was so easy for kids to do, they got pretty comfortable with it quickly. Those are my ideas for Screencast-O-Matic. Do you have any either questions about Screencast-O-Matic other than my very horrible demonstration of it, since you couldn't see my demo slide? But do you have questions about Screencast-O-Matic or your own ideas of how you might use this with kiddos?
I had two questions.
Okay.
How are the file sizes for the videos that it makes? Are they large? Are they easy to share?
It all depends on the size of the video. I know that's not a great answer, but that is my reality, at least. I want to say they were around, I'm trying to see if I could see the file size of that one on here. I want to say they are in the, 3 to 7 megabytes. So they are a little bit bigger. Shorter, like if I was just doing a video of an assignment that was only like 30 seconds long, those are much smaller. But like this one where it was a lesson and it was 7.5 minutes long, that's a sizable. So now I probably can't email this 7.5 minute long video. Now I would post that to my classroom Google site, or at West Fargo, we used Schoology. I would post that to my Schoology page so that kids could access it.
The second question I had is, did I see that you could put video of yourself along, like on the screen at the same time as a document that you were going through, or a PowerPoint?
Yes. So let me see if I can make it so that you can see this recorder a bit better. I'm going to stop sharing that view, and I'm going to see if I can share this now. Now can you see my recorder?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, so good. I figured out how to switch to this other view. So yes, I can choose to just record my screen, to just record my webcam, and then it will switch to my webcam, or I can do both. And when you do both, I know you can't see the image because all you can see is my little record box, but it just puts my photo down in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. And then even during the video, I can turn that off and on as I move back and forth. So I could start with my face and then pause my recording and then switch to the document and my face.
That's good. I was using PowerPoint, how you can record videos within it, and that feature seemed to go away, or it made the file sizes too large. I tried MoveNote, which was a web-based one, and that went out of business, and so I was looking for another solution.
And how do you use, when you've done those PowerPoint recordings or the OneNote, the MoveNote, how do you use those with students? Like, how do you give them to them, or what's your goal with those?
I did start with a flipped classroom, and I found I wasn't comfortable with that format. So I ended up using them for substitute teachers, which is awesome. So they can do my lectures. or for kids who are absent, and they can watch the notes and get the notes that way. So right now I'm sharing it through folders in Edmodo.
Okay.
Okay.
Edmodo is another one that's similar to Edpuzzle. If you're willing to start trying the flip situation or just blended learning, right? We talk about flipped classroom, but there's no reason why, if you have a series of stations set up in your classroom, why one station can't be this video recording, right? Or students they have a series of steps that they have to complete. They can complete them in a couple different steps. One is this video instruction for a specific task or concept. So there's lots of ways to use those. Edpuzzle allows you to take any of those videos and embed quiz questions. And once you have it uploaded to Edpuzzle, you can add as many questions as you want, and students can't advance through the video past your question. They have to answer the question. So I liked that. And then it's a simple integration kids can just add into your class. And the other thing I like about it is it talks to YouTube. So instead of having to make your own video, if there's a video on YouTube that you like, you just want to add questions to it, you can upload any video you want and add questions, or take a video from YouTube. Plus there are tons of teachers on it, so you can access a lot of the other quizzes that they've already created. And same thing, whether you're blending, flipping, or I love your point, Brad, sub-lessons. What do you do when you know you're going to be gone? We as teachers, I think, fear being gone, or at least I did, because it was twice as much work to be gone and twice as much work to come back. So I might as well just come. And then it always felt it was a disincentive to like go to a workshop or go to a training, because I knew I was going to have to be gone. And then I have to strategize, what can I have the kids do that is foolproof? I can't even imagine, like, Troy, for you in your classroom, of having to do sub-plans for all of your different lessons within your third grade classroom. I can't even imagine how stressful that would be. Because for me, my sub-plan only had to get a sub through 50 minutes.
Yeah.
To do it day.
For everything.
For everything. So if you could do a series of some blended learning stations, could you see how you might take like a Screencastify or whichever one of those tools? I agree with Brad. You can do this same thing by recording right in PowerPoint slides, and it's pretty similar. I just like the flexibility of not having to have everything in PowerPoint in order to record it.
Possibly. It's just, it's such different lessons every day, and it would almost have to be, you would almost have to record a whole year to have stuff to pull from, it seems like. So I'm not sure how much work it would be to record the whole lesson and then be gone. Anyway, so I don't know if it would save time. Maybe if you were sure you could use it again.
In a couple of years. The other thing that, like West Fargo High School, their math department has gone to a lot of flipped instruction. And so they worked together to create the videos. So the different teachers took different concepts. And so I think it's just an interesting concept. And I liked that even if I assigned the video, like for my, my example on in-text citations, the first year I did it, I just had the video because I either didn't know about Edpuzzle or it didn't exist. But I just had the video, and I literally just posted it, and I said, today is a writing lab day. If you need review for in-text citations, watch that video. If I come around and I see that you're not doing them or you're not doing it correctly, there's your resource. I'm not going to go through the in-text citations again until you've watched that video. And it really freed me up that there were a lot of kids who didn't need to watch the video. They had already mastered in-text citations. So instead of me kind of wasting 15 minutes of class time reteaching a concept that 50% of the kids had, I was able to target it to those kids that needed it and be able to spend more time just talking to kids about their writing. Yeah. Any other questions about this tool or about how other ideas on how you might use it? I love the blended learning reminder and the sub reminder.
I thought it would be kind of neat to maybe use it for student book reviews.
Yeah.
You know, because they could show the cover of the book while they're talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd have to explore that a little bit, but it seems like something that would be fun for the students to do.
I think it is fun for the students to do. I think they get a nice little kick, even juniors and seniors, of like, I get to teach this concept, like I get to share this. And that's kind of what it's all about. There is a little tutorial here in the slide deck of a little step-by-step of how to use Screencastify, Screencast-O-Matic rather. And like I said, there's my little example. It's not very good. It's me talking about in-text citations, so it's pretty boring. Feel free to check that out if that's of any interest. We're not going to spend a ton of time on Audacity because I think this is something that would be, I just want to plant this seed is my goal with Audacity. I have used it with students in my theater and in my English classes as kind of a challenge assignment. And I have asked students to create soundscapes that capture the tone, the mood, and the overall feeling of a book or a play that we're reading. In my theater class, I've also had my students do silent scenes where they couldn't talk. All they could use lights, they could use sound, and they could use movement, and they had to tell a story. So we were using it as part of our general exploration of different mediums and how to use different things. So I don't know that Audacity has as many applications, but another cool thing that you could do, Audacity, it's a free download, and I will show you what it looks like. But it's a free download and it allows you, can you see my Audacity box?
Nope.
No.
So I just need to change. I think you'll be able, hopefully, you can see it now.
Yep.
So my Audacity box is here and it's for audio files. So I can go in, and I did download one, but I can put in any audio files, or I can just record myself. So if I have audio files on my computer, I downloaded this football cheering. It comes in here like this, and I can have this, I can now like play with sound effects and have sound effects going on. I can also just record myself talking. You can see the sound waves recording while I'm going. So this gives me just an audio file. This isn't video, but think of how many podcasts are out there now. Do any of you listen to podcasts?
Yep.
Okay. I do every morning while I'm getting ready, and I'm frequently in the evenings. And you saw how hard it was for me to do that, right? I am sitting here at my computer. I hit the record button, and now it is recording my voice. And when I hit the stop button, it stops recording my voice. If I put my tracker in there, my pin, now it's like going backwards. If I put recording my voice, there we go. So you have to play around with some of these different little tools about editing and things like that. I'm not a master of Audacity, but honest to God, anytime I have introduced this to students, they figure it out in about 15 minutes. And that would probably be a little bit longer for elementary school students. So you might want to play around with this. I did put like an Audacity user tool in the box. But think of some of the things that you could do for your projects in having students record and have a class podcast. What if it was even a class podcast where they had to explain different concepts? What if it was a class podcast that was focused on parent communication, and every week there were a different pair of students that recorded a little class update, and that podcast was shared with parents? What if you wanted to practice interviewing skills or storytelling skills? So I've put some additional resources on here. I always tell my students about Sound Bible because it is a royalty-free audio clip and sound effects site. So if you are doing different things where you want them to have sound effects, this is royalty-free. So I always send my kids here first because it's completely open use. And so it's adhering to all copyright infringement and things like that. So you're good to go. There is this little Audacity basic tutorial here. If you are interested, or you think a student might be interested. I've also just shared this with individual students before who it just seems like something they would like to do. And I've given the audio option for some assignments, right? Like if a kid can meet all the assignment criteria and do it in a soundscape, why not? So here are some things with Audacity. Again, I think this is a little bit more specific. I don't know that this is one that you might use on a day-to-day basis, certainly not a day-to-day basis. But could you think of any ways that you might use an audio tool like this in your classroom?
I'm just thinking of reluctant writers when we're trying to get their ideas down. If they could record themselves and they could play it back, it's like, you have these ideas, tell me what you want to write down, because a lot of them lose their thoughts and focus on the misspelling and all of that. Mm-hmm. If we could just record it, then it's like, well, we have it, you didn't lose it. Just listen to it, and then maybe they could transcribe their own ideas.
I love that idea. I also was looking here, I was trying to pull up all of my extensions. There's a great extension. Are you a Google school? Troy, remind me.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so in my extensions, one you might want to try for those reluctant writers is an extension called Speech Notes. Let me pull it up. Since this came up, Speech Notes is this lovely free add-on. I will show it to you quick. I know this wasn't the purpose, but if we were talking about different reflections, this wasn't the purpose today. I tap the microphone, and now as I speak, can you see that what I'm saying is being typed into my Word document? Mm-hmm. Period. So think of how this would change writing for a kiddo who, as Troy pointed out, might be a very reluctant writer. Now, instead of assessing their ability to type, I can focus on assessing their ability to truly share their ideas and organize their thoughts. Now I have this little, this text, and I can just copy and paste it into a Word doc. So not the focus of today, but a random thing. It's called Speech Notes. And like I said, it's a free, you can just go to speechnotes.com like I just did. If you have, if your students have Gmail accounts as well, it is a Google extension. And once you add that extension to your Chrome browser, a little icon just comes up. Like on my desktop, I have it, on my laptop, I have it. And all they have to do then is push the speech note button, and this page automatically opens for them.
And they have to put in their own punctuation, is that right? Is that what you did?
I did. They do have to say those things, and it doesn't edit for you, right? Which I think is okay, because
I think that's probably better, yeah.
Yeah. And so now they still have to edit, Like I stumbled, and so I have the same word a couple times. I have to go through, and like right here, there isn't a period. So I do have to, it's still just, it's an AI, it's not perfect. But man, I think this would be a game changer. I do love your idea in terms of using Audacity or just a simple app on phones for students to brainstorm and just record themselves so that they can go back and listen to their ideas. I do think that that's a cool idea in general, Troy. For the writing thing that you were talking about, for me, I find that for most kids, it's the physical typing. I mean, juniors and seniors, hunting and pecking, you know, and I watch them, like, how are they going to type a 5-page paper? Like, how long is that going to take this kid? Well, if they can just speak their ideas, that's a lot easier.
Yeah.
So that wasn't the focus, but there you go. Speech notes.
Good
Also
thought.
free. Also free. But like I said, I do like your general tip. I think that's a cool idea. All right, the last thing I want to chat a little bit about is just the idea of bringing blogging into the classroom. I'm going to show you Blogger. Again, this is the Google tool. Anyone can still use it, but this is the nice integrated right with your Gmail. On my next slide, I have some ideas here for how you might use Blogger, and KQED Teach has this lovely little infographic. If you were going to have students make a poster or do a research paper, an oral presentation, or a journal, think of some other ways that they might do that same basic concept in a more multimedia format so that we're mixing things up. I love the idea of having a class blog. Certainly there are tons of teachers that have teacher blogs and they use the class blog as a way to stay in touch with parents. But what if instead of you as the teacher having to write and update a blog, what if that was part of your class, that your class reflected on their thinking in written form, and every week or so, different students were responsible for being the reporters. And there was a team that, all right, you're covering the math beat this week, and you're covering social studies, and these students are covering science, and these kids are covering what we're reading. And different students are responsible for different little sections of the blog. And then that is what gets shared with parents. The nice thing about blogs is they allow you to add in pictures and other graphic images. I also think it could be really fun to do a class blog on different topics and have different challenge teams. So even in a science classroom, I think it could be interesting to take an idea like friction and have students write about friction in a variety of ways. So come up with an image that helps capture the meaning of friction. Write a short narrative that helps show the meaning of friction or how friction is an important scientific concept. Do a historical interview or like a historical summary of important scientific information that we've gained from the discovery of friction and how this is applied in the world. I think you could do a lot of different little things of having kids play around with the genre or with the format of a blog. There's this nice little article about bringing blogging to the classroom, and this woman says it all, so I'm not going to go through a ton. If you are interested in blogging, she has a nice setup of what does blogging in the classroom mean, as well as a lot of resources in here. I've also shared the different blogging formats that she recommends. Like I said, I'll show you Blogger. I lived overseas for a couple of years, and while I was overseas, I had a blog to communicate with my family. So this is what Blogger looks like. You can see that it's just a series of posts. It's pretty easy to create a new post. You could have one class account instead of individual student accounts, right? If you were doing a class blog, you would want one class blog account, and you literally just click on the new post. It gives you some nice metrics. You can see the little eye tells me how many people read my different posts. It tells you, you know, I'm the person who made it. I can add people to my blog. So if I wanted to add additional people, I can add people so that they can also post in here. But I just click a new post, and then it's basically like a Word document. But I can embed links, pictures, even some videos. So if I was doing a class blog or a concept blog, like, right, we're gonna blog as part of our reflection on our learning. Back to Kim's point about kids doing different books and kind of book reviews, it could be kind of cool to have a school literary blog of kids, you know, writing short little articles. You can record short little videos and put that in. You could have a picture of the books and just some ratings and recommendations. And then, and then I can, you know, actually view, I can view all of these, and then it just looks like this. So this is the link that I could share now with parents. I can share this with other teachers. I could share this with really whatever audience I want. And it's that audience point that I think really ups the ante for our students. Now they're not just writing and reflecting for us as their teachers, they're writing and reflecting for an actual audience. Other people can read this. You can keep it as private as you want, but I like the idea that students are learning real world publishing skills. And there are all kinds of ways to rotate who is writing, who is editing, who is maybe the photojournalist for the week or 2 weeks. So students could also really play with thinking about their learning in different ways. How do I show what I learned about this concept in a series of photographs? How do I share my learning in this concept as a story? How do I share my learning in this concept as an informative article or a persuasive article? So I like that if you just think outside the box a little bit, you could really have a pretty cool blog that is all about your students' learning. So not only can it function as a little bit of a formative or summative assessment at the end of a unit, it's also just an ongoing reminder to them about their metacognition and in thinking about what they're learning and thinking about their own thinking. Questions or ideas about having a class blog?
When you have a class blog, do you need parents' permission to post to students, you know, their
writing? I think that's a great point, Kim. I would certainly, if I was doing this, particularly in an elementary classroom, I would make sure to think through what is my audience? A lot of teachers, if they do a class blog, the only people who see it are the parents of the people in the class.
Right.
It's also a great way to talk about digital citizenship. So I think that getting parent permission is reasonable. You just then have to have a backup plan of if a parent doesn't want their child published online, how do we handle that? A friend of mine who does this with her kindergarten class, so they do a lot of pictures and a lot of little video updates. She has taught them how to black out faces. So if they take a picture of their classroom, of their classmates, one of their policies for digital responsibility is they don't post photos of other people, including themselves. So they have these pictures in their classroom, but there are like, you know, sticker, smiley face, you know, graphics over everyone's heads. And that's another way that I think can help alleviate some of those fears on the part of a parent, that if you as the teacher are teaching good digital citizenship skills, part of that could be, we don't take photos of people's faces and we're not going to put those online. That's part of our privacy. And so we're going to have that level of privacy as a class. Yeah.
So if, let's say with, if you're not doing pictures, but they're just doing like a blog that we post on the school website on the library media page, and they're doing it about a book, and the pictures just like the cover of the book and their little blog, I suppose it could just have their first name.
Yeah, I think that's a much safer idea. You're right. If it's just the first name and then comma, third grader, if you wanted, you know, like you could identify what grade the kid is perhaps. And I would only consider doing that because sometimes people can be very, like we can get into comparison land, right? Of like this kid versus this kid. But if you have clear expectations of what you want the book blog to look like, I think that that would be a really cool way. What a gift to those kids to be a published author. Like they're a published book reviewer, and other people in the community can read what they've written. So again, you've upped the ante on their writing. If they know that someone other than just me, the teacher, is going to read what they've written, I find that students take it a little bit more seriously.
Right.
Other ideas on how you might incorporate a blog into your classroom?
I'm not ready for that yet.
Okay, I appreciate, and I think that's an important thing. I'm sharing a lot of different stuff, and it sounds like I did all of these things. My first 5 years of teaching, I did very little technology. I mean, we were doing a lot of posters, and I still, even as a high school teacher, we do a lot of things where it's walking around, hand drawing posters, making, like physically acting things out. I speak as if my kids were on computers every single day. I would say that on average, we had a computer about 1 week a month, or like access. So that might be like a day here, a day there, right? It might not be a week at a stretch, but I would say in general, I'm doing things on like this on a computer about 1 week in the course, over the course of a month. And then for larger projects, we might have a couple weeks within the month that we're on computers. Like when we get into research paper time. Now we're on computers quite a bit, but we're using those mostly as research tools. So kind of to your point, Troy, I think that's good. Like pick 1 or 2 things that you're like, I'm gonna try this. My other advice to you, because I think sometimes I found that I ended up, when I was assessing a student on something, and they had to use a certain technology tool in order to do it, every once in a while I found that I was assessing their ability to use the tool more than I was assessing their ability to do what I had asked them, more than I was assessing the actual standard. And I'm glad that I could recognize that. And that's the main thing that I always would ask myself when I would try to look at an assignment and look at the rubric, and particularly when I was grading something. Am I grading this child's ability to use this tool, or am I grading their ability to perform this task, to master this standard? And so one of the tricks that I tried to combat that, if there was another teacher, particularly a teacher that kids might have had prior to coming to me who used a particular tech tool, I tried to use the same thing, because that ups the likelihood that the students are already familiar with it. So if you find that someone else in your school is already doing a blog, highly recommend, even if that blog platform isn't your first choice, I highly recommend, for the sake of the students, use the same blog platform. They're pretty similar, but why use the exact same tool and scaffold that tool for students instead of asking them to code switch between a whole bunch of different things? I think for me, I've been an Office 365 teacher and I've been a Google School teacher, and I can do both. But man, if I have to switch back and forth between both, it's really annoying. And I get confused and it just takes me longer to do things. So now imagine that you're 8 and you're being asked to do that, or you're 16 and you're being asked to do that. So with any of this technology integration stuff, if you know of a colleague who's already doing something, I highly recommend that you use that same tool. Other final thoughts, questions, ideas? We didn't get into the StoryCorps much. This resource is here. Just a reminder that StoryCorps, they have a program called the Great Thanksgiving Listen. And this would be a kind of a podcast. This is an audio recording. They have a free StoryCorps app. They have lesson plans, and they host an event called the Great Thanksgiving Listen. And the goal of this is to get people to have conversations, right? The gimmick is, over Thanksgiving, interview your grandmother about something, talk to your uncle about something, and record just a short 2 to 3 minute interview with that person. And you can listen to stories at StoryCorps to get a lot of examples. And this happens every year. And I've talked to teachers from all the way down to 3rd grade for sure, who have done this project in their class. Some have required it, and some have just done it as a, hey, like, if you're interested, and they share the information with parents. The final resource in here, if there was something in here that we talked about today that you're interested in diving deeper, KQED Teach has a series of free, self-paced, interactive units that would really help you learn how to do this. I've shared a lot of ideas of how you might apply it in your classroom, but we haven't talked very much about the nuts and bolts of how to do these things. I've provided a couple of video links, that's about it. But KQED Teach already has these great little self-guided lessons. It's a lot on different media related tasks. So podcasting, video storytelling, finding and evaluating information, managing and assessing media projects, and of course, developing a blog. So if you are interested in any of those, some of them are pretty short. They're like 4 little units and their estimated time is, an hour. Some of them are much longer. So if you're interested in those, all of the links to that are here, and that's just a resource for you at your leisure to check out. As we close, I want to echo what Troy said, of that you got this, you don't have to do all of this. So if Audacity, if blogging, if some of these things, you're like, these are interesting ideas, but this is just not going to happen this school year, that's just fine. Pick 1 or 2 things that you're going to try to do with your students. And the biggest thing that I want you to be thinking about through all of this is just, how are you helping your students think about their own thinking? How are you helping them reflect on their learning? And how are you as a teacher hearing what they have learned? And you can hear that in Post-it notes. You can hear that in exit tickets. You can hear that in drawings. You can hear that in skits. You can hear that in a lot of different things with tech tools. Any final thoughts or questions? Is there something that you might try in your classroom?
I'll take a closer look at the Screen-O-Matic.
Okay.
The Screencast-O-Matic.
Yeah.
And I'm still, from last week's Flipgrid, is what I'm still trying to get. I tried. Yeah, so I tried to download that, but it wouldn't download on my computer, but it downloaded on my phone. So
Okay,
I'm still checking things out.
fantastic.
I'm going to take a better look at Blogger just to see if that's something that might be good for student book reviews that we could post on our school social media page.
That's awesome. I would love to hear about how any of those projects go. Feel free to email and do that. And next week, we're going to talk even a little bit more about some video tools, some different ways of helping students reflect specifically with video. And this would be video not of their desktop, but really video of them. So join us for that or catch it next time. But no matter what you're doing, thanks for joining me today in this discussion. And I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.